The vast emptiness of space held no comfort for Fleet Commander Verak as his vessel limped across the edge of the Rigel system. What remained of the once mighty Galactic Confederation fleet trailed behind in equally desperate condition, 17, ships where once 5,000 had proudly sailed the cosmic winds. On the viewscreen before him, emergency lights flickered, bathing the command deck in an ominous crimson glow that matched the dying star they passed. "Status report," Verak demanded, his four eyes blinking independently as exhaustion crept through his tall, slender frame. Lieutenant Morix's tentacles trembled as she delivered the news. "The Zarnathian forces have seized control of the Proxima Relay. We've lost our last secure communications channel to Homeworld." Verak's secondary hearts constricted. 6 stellar cycles of war, and now this, total defeat. The Zarnathians, with their hive-mind consciousness and biomechanical warriors, had systematically dismantled the Confederation's defenses, planet by planet, system by system. "We've received an encrypted transmission," Morix continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The Central Council has surrendered. The Zarnathian Imperium now controls 70% of Confederation space." A heavy silence settled over the bridge. After centuries of peaceful expansion, scientific achievement, and cultural renaissance, the Confederation, the crowning achievement of 17 sentient species working in harmony, was no more. "And the terms of surrender?" asked Verak, though he already knew what barbarity awaited. "Total subjugation, resource extraction rights on all worlds, conscription of populations for labor forces." Morix paused, her chromatophores paling to an ashen gray. "And genetic harvesting rights for their biotechnology programs." Commander Verak sank into his gravity chair. The Zarnathians didn't simply conquer. They consumed, absorbing the strengths of defeated species into their collective while eradicating all resistance. The 17 civilizations that had built the Confederation would now face extinction or worse, becoming mere components in the ever-growing Zarnathian biomass. "Commander," interrupted Navigation Officer Peltz, a stocky Durelian whose crystalline exoskeleton had dulled with stress, "our long-range sensors have detected an anomaly at the edge of the system." Verak waved a dismissive hand. "Another Zarnathian. Hunter-killer group, no doubt. They're nothing if not thorough." "No, sir. The signature doesn't match any known Zarnathian configuration. It's something else." The main view screen shifted to display a swirling vortex of blue-white energy that tore through the fabric of space itself. Verak leapt to his feet, ancestral recognition flooding his system with adrenaline. "That's a rupture point! But that's impossible! No species in the known galaxy has mastered fold technology." As they watched, vessels began emerging from the spatial tear. Sleek, angular ships with pulsing blue engines and gleaming hulls adorned with an unfamiliar insignia, a stylized planet with a single natural satellite. "Sir," Morix's voice cracked with disbelief, "we're receiving a transmission. It's in Standard Galactic, but the syntax markers indicate it's being translated from a language our systems don't recognize." "Put it through," Verak ordered, straightening his posture despite the fatigue that weighed on his 4 limbs. A face appeared on the view screen, a bipedal being with bilateral symmetry, exposed dermal tissue covered in various pigmentations, and a curious lack of protective exoskeleton. Yet something in those eyes, just 2 of them, held an intensity that made even Verak step back. "Confederation vessels. This is Admiral Kasumi Orlov of the United Earth Fleet. We detected your distress beacon. Our intelligence suggests you're at war with an entity called the Zarnathian Imperium. We've come to offer our assistance," Raki exchanged bewildered glances with his officers. "Earth? This was a primitive world on the fringes of the galaxy. The Confederation's xenoanthropologists had designated it a pre-contact civilization, barely achieving spaceflight within its own system." "I don't understand," Verak replied cautiously. Your world has no fold capability. Your species was still using chemical propulsion when we last observed. Admiral Orlov's lips curved upward. A lot can change in 40 years, Commander, especially when a species realizes they're not alone in the universe and decides they'd better catch up quickly. The view screen widened to reveal the full scope of the human fleet. Hundreds of vessels of varying sizes, each bristling with weapon systems that Confederation sensors couldn't even classify. "Now," said Admiral Orlov, her expression hardening, "tell me everything you know about these Zarnathians. Humanity is very interested in making their acquaintance." The observation deck of the UES Intrepid hummed with whispered conversations as the Confederation survivors were brought aboard. Admiral Orlov watched through one-way quantum glass as medical teams attended to the aliens, providing nutrition, hydration, and emergency care tailored to 17 different physiologies. 40 years of covert study had prepared humanity well for this moment. "Remarkable," murmured Dr. Alara Voss, standing beside the Admiral. The xenobiologist's fingers danced across her datapad, capturing observations. The Confederation truly achieved biological harmony. "Look at the medical symbiosis between the Durelian physician and the Merodian patient." "Focus, Doctor," Orlov said. "We need tactical information, not a xenobiology thesis." Fleet Intelligence Officer Dax Riker joined them, his dark features set in a grim expression. "The data packets we've retrieved from their vessels confirm our worst fears, Admiral. This Zarnathian Imperium is systematically consuming entire civilizations, not just conquering them." "Clarify consuming," Orlov prompted. "They're a compound hive organism. They don't just occupy, they absorb. They harvest genetic material from conquered species, incorporating advantageous traits into their collective. The rest becomes biomass for their expansion." Orlov's jaw tightened. When humanity had first detected encrypted transmissions from the Confederation Zarnathian conflict 3 years ago, Earth's unified government had accelerated military preparations. The message was clear. The galaxy was dangerous, and humanity needed to be ready. "What's their estimated technological level compared to ours?" Orlov asked. Riker displayed a holographic comparison chart. "Their biotech is beyond anything we've developed. Their weapon systems are powerful but conventional, primarily energy-based with some gravitic components. What they lack is our innovation in quantum mechanics." "And fold technology," added Voss. "Precisely," Riker confirmed. "They've been fighting a conventional war across normal space. They have no defense against our dimensional phasing or quantum weaponry." Commander Verak was escorted onto the observation deck, his 4 eyes widening as he took in the sleek, advanced design of the human vessel. "Your medical facilities are impressive," he said cautiously. "But I must ask, how did your species advance so rapidly? The last Confederation survey indicated you were centuries from achieving interstellar travel." Admiral Orlov's expression remained neutral. "We had help. 42 years ago, a damaged Confederation scout ship crashed near one of our southern continental regions. There was one survivor." Verak's secondary hearts stuttered. "That's impossible. Any such incident would have been reported." "Not if the survivor chose not to be found," Orlov countered. Lieutenant Nix Tarax of the Confederation Sciences Division made a choice when she realized her emergency beacon wasn't functioning. Instead of dying alone on our primitive world, she reached out. She taught us, guided us, helped us understand what awaited among the stars. "A Meridian," Verak whispered, recognizing the species name. "But why would she violate first contact protocol?" "Because she saw something in humanity that impressed her. Our adaptability, our relentless innovation, our capacity to unify despite our differences." Orlov's expression softened slightly. "She passed away 12 years ago, but not before seeing humanity's first fold-capable vessel." Commander Verak sank into a chair designed to accommodate his physiology, another sign of how thoroughly prepared these humans were. "You've been watching us all this time." "We've been preparing," Orlov corrected. "Lieutenant Tarax warned us that the galaxy wasn't always peaceful. When we detected the outbreak of your war, we accelerated our timeline." "Admiral," interrupted a communications officer, "the Zarnathian advance fleet has entered the system. They've detected the Confederation vessels and are moving to intercept." Orlov turned to Verak. "Commander, you and your people have fought bravely, but now it's our turn. I'm asking for your trust, and any tactical information you can provide about Zarnathian battle strategies." Verak studied the human admiral carefully. This species had achieved in decades what had taken the Confederation centuries. There was something both awe-inspiring and terrifying in such rapid advancement. "They attack in spiral formations," he finally said. "Their vessels are partially organic and can regenerate damage. Target their central nodes, what you might call command centers. Disrupt those, and the outlying ships become disorganized." Admiral Orlov nodded, then turned to her crew. "Battle stations. Deploy the fleet in Thunderhead formation. Activate quantum shielding and prepare dimensional phase generators." As red alert klaxons sounded throughout the ship, Orlov looked back at Verak. "Commander, you're about to witness humanity's first contribution to galactic history. I suggest you watch carefully." The Zarnathian advance fleet emerged from sublight, travel in perfect formation, a spiraling arrangement of 67 biomechanical vessels that resembled massive segmented insects. Their hulls pulsed with veins of bioluminescent energy, and weapon ports opened like hungry maws along their flanks. Aboard the Zarnathian command ship, Hive Commander Zix Vorn's compound eyes registered the tattered Confederation vessels with satisfaction. His mandibles clicked in the ceremonial pattern of domination. "Remnants of the defeated," he chittered to his neural-linked officers. "Prepare harvesting chambers for genetic extraction." "Hive, Commander," interrupted Subnode Krell. "Sensors detect additional vessels in formation around the Confederation ships." "Classification?" demanded Zix Vorn. "Unknown, Hive Commander. Configuration and energy signatures match no known species in our database." Zix Vorn's segmented body tensed. The Zarnathian Imperium had catalogued every spacefaring race in this sector of the galaxy. An unknown species was an anomaly, and potentially a threat to the perfect order of the Hive. "Magnify visual," he ordered. The neural projection expanded in his mind, revealing the sleek, angular vessels of the human fleet. As he watched, these strange ships began to move in a pattern unlike any battle formation he had encountered in 3 centuries of conquest. "Open communications," Zix Vorn commanded. "Inform these interlopers that they have entered territory claimed by the Zarnathian Imperium. They will submit to genetic evaluation or be destroyed." Aboard the UES Intrepid, Admiral Orlov received the transmission with a cold smile. "They're as charming as advertised," she remarked to her bridge crew. "Return transmission. Open channel." When the connection stabilized, Orlov stared directly at the alien commander, a nightmarish fusion of insectoid and mechanical components. "This is Admiral Kasumi Orlov of the United Earth Fleet. We recognize no claim of the Zarnathian Imperium. The Confederation worlds are under the protection of humanity. You will withdraw your forces immediately or face consequences." The translation matrix rendered the Zarnathian's response in a series of clicks and hisses that the computer smoothed into words. "Unknown species. Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be evaluated and added to our own. Resistance is inefficient. Submit for harvesting." Orlov cut the transmission and turned to her weapons officer. "Lieutenant Rivera, initiate dimensional phase shift. Target their command vessel with a quantum lance demonstration." "Aye, Admiral." "Phase shift initiating. Quantum lance charged and locked." On the tactical display, a single human corvette designated Harrier blinked out of conventional space. The Zarnathian sensors registered confusion, their targeting systems unable to lock onto the vessel that had seemingly disappeared. The Harrier rematerialized directly above the Zarnathian command ship, its quantum lance already firing. A brilliant beam of concentrated energy, manipulated at the subatomic level to bypass conventional shielding, sliced through the alien vessel's command node. The effect was immediate and devastating. The massive Zarnathian ship spasmed as its neural network collapsed, secondary explosions rippling along its segmented body before it split apart in a spectacular eruption of biomechanical debris. "By the first light," whispered Commander Verak, watching from the observation deck. "One shot." The Zarnathian fleet responded with surprising speed, their spiral formation breaking apart as they launched a barrage of plasma torpedoes and graviton beams at the human vessels. But the UES ships shifted in and out of dimensional phase. The attacks passing harmlessly through the spaces where they had been microseconds before. "All ships, execute Thunderhead Protocol," ordered Orlov. "Phase intervals at maximum dispersion. Target command nodes and propulsion systems." What followed was unlike any battle the galaxy had witnessed before. The human vessels performed what appeared to be an elaborate dance through multiple dimensions, appearing just long enough to deliver devastating strikes before vanishing again. Quantum lances severed neural connections between Zarnathian ships, while dimensional charges created localized ruptures in space-time that tore the organic components of the alien vessels apart at the molecular level. Lieutenant Morix joined, Verak at the viewport, her tentacles trembling not with fear but with awe. The humans? They're not just fighting the Zarnathians. They're dismantling them. Yes, Verak agreed quietly. And they're doing it with a precision that suggests they've prepared specifically for this enemy. On the bridge, Admiral Orlov received updated tactical information from her fleet captains. 15 minutes into the engagement, 43 Zarnathian vessels had been destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had suffered minimal damage to 3 ships, with no casualties reported. "Admiral," reported Communications Officer Wei, "we're detecting a massive energy surge. The remaining Zarnathian vessels are attempting to establish a hive link." Orlov nodded. "Just as Commander Verak warned us, they're trying to form a unified consciousness to coordinate their defense." She tapped her command console. "All ships, initiate protocol sundering. Deploy psionic disruptors." From the belly of each human capital ship, specialized emitters activated, broadcasting carefully modulated energy waves that interfered with the telepathic connection between Zarnathian vessels. The effect was immediate. The alien ships lurched erratically, their coordinated movements dissolving into chaos. "They're retreating, Admiral," announced Tactical Officer Riker. "The surviving vessels are attempting to achieve FTL." "Let them. Go," Orlov ordered. "They'll carry the message back to their hive." As the last Zarnathian ships disappeared into FTL, a cheer erupted across the human fleet. But Admiral Orlov remained solemn, her gaze meeting Commander Verak's across the command deck. "That was merely the first engagement, Commander," she said quietly. "The real war has just begun." The grand chamber aboard the UES Arbitrator hummed, with tension as representatives from 17 Confederation species sat across from the human delegation. Once the ceremonial meeting hall of the Confederation Council, the chamber had been recreated in perfect detail aboard humanity's largest diplomatic vessel, a gesture that wasn't lost on the assembled aliens. At the center of the human delegation, Admiral Orlov sat flanked by General Ezra Caney, commander of Earth's ground forces, and Chancellor Imani Okafor, Earth's diplomatic representative. Facing them, Commander Verak had assumed the role of acting Confederation representative, his 4 eyes constantly shifting between the humans and his fellow aliens. "Let us be direct," began Chancellor Okafor, her rich voice carrying effortlessly through the chamber. "The engagement at Rigel was merely a prelude. Our intelligence suggests the Zarnathians will respond with overwhelming force once they recognize the threat humanity poses. You destroyed 67 of their vessels with minimal losses," countered Peltz, the Durrellian navigation officer. Surely, with such technology, we had the element of surprise, General Caney interrupted, his weathered face grim beneath salt and pepper hair. That advantage is now gone. The Zarnathians will adapt. It's what hive organisms do. Our next encounter will be significantly more difficult. Verac nodded slowly. The general is correct. The Zarnathians evolved their tactics and biology in response to defeat. It's why the Confederation ultimately failed. We won countless individual battles but couldn't adapt quickly enough to their counter-strategies. Murmurs spread through the chamber as holographic displays activated, showing the current state of Confederation space. Nearly 70% glowed with the sickly green that designated Zarnathian control. "What exactly are you proposing?" asked Morix, her tentacles coiling nervously. "Even with your impressive technology, humanity cannot hope to liberate all." Confederation worlds, Admiral Orlov leaned forward. "We're not proposing liberation. Not yet. We're proposing extinction." A shocked silence fell over the chamber. "The eradication of an entire species," gasped a Photurian representative, their luminescent skin flaring with alarm. "That would violate the fundamental principles upon which the Confederation was founded." Chancellor Okafor raised a calming hand. "We understand your ethical concerns, but the Zarnathians aren't simply conquerors. They're consumers. They don't leave conquered civilizations intact. They absorb them. This isn't war in the conventional sense. It's existential. Our scientists have analyzed the data from your encounters," added Dr. Voss, joining the conversation. "The Zarnathians operate as a compound organism with distributed consciousness. What appear to be individuals are merely autonomous extensions of the central hive mind." General Caney activated a new holographic display showing the neural structure of the Zarnathian collective. "We believe there are 5 primary hive nodes located in the core systems they first conquered. These nodes contain the essential genetic material and consciousness of their species. Destroy these, and the extended hive, including their military forces, will collapse." Verac studied the display with growing understanding. "A decapitation strategy, but reaching their core systems would require fighting through their entire defense network." Admiral Orlov smiled thinly. "Not if we don't use conventional space." With a gesture, she expanded the holographic display to show a complex network of intersecting lines that cut through the fabric of normal space. "Fold paths," she explained. "Dimensional corridors that allow us to bypass normal space entirely. We can deploy strike teams directly to each hive node simultaneously, bypassing their defenses." The alien representatives stared in amazement. For centuries, theoretical physicists throughout the Confederation had speculated about such technology, but none had successfully implemented it. "Even if you can reach the hive nodes," Morix argued, "what makes you think you can destroy them? The Zarnathians have layered defenses, biological, technological, and psionic." In answer, General Caney nodded to a previously silent member of the human delegation, a lean, intense woman with cybernetic enhancements visible at her temples. "This is Commander Faye NDI, leader of our Psionic Combat Division," Orlov introduced. NDI's voice was soft, but carried an unmistakable edge of steel. "The Zarnathians aren't the only species with collective capabilities. 22% of Earth's population exhibits some form of psionic potential. We've weaponized ours." To demonstrate, she extended her hand toward a decorative crystalline sculpture. The crystal shattered, not from physical force, but from a precisely modulated psionic attack that disrupted its molecular bonds. "Our strike. Teams consist of soldiers trained to target the specific neural frequencies used by the Zarnathian hive mind," Ndai continued. "Combined with targeted quantum destabilizers, we can unravel their consciousness at its source." Commander Verac looked around at his fellow Confederation representatives. He saw fear in their expressions, but also something that had been absent for years: hope. "You've clearly prepared extensively for this conflict," he said carefully, "but I must ask, Why? Why would humanity, a species unknown to the Confederation until now, commit such resources to fight our war? Chancellor Okafor exchanged glances with Admiral Orlov before responding. Because we recognized in the Zarnathians what we once saw in ourselves, the danger of unchecked consumption without coexistence. And in the Confederation, we saw what humanity could aspire to become. She rose to her feet, addressing the entire chamber. Lieutenant Tarax didn't just teach us about space travel and alien biology, she taught us about the Confederation's greatest achievement. 17 distinct species living in harmony while preserving their unique identities. It's a vision worth fighting for. After a moment of silence, Verak stood as well. Then let us fight together. The Confederation fleet is at your disposal, Admiral Orlov. What remains of it, at least. We don't just need your ships, Commander, Orlov replied. We need your knowledge. Your people have fought the Zarnathians for 6 years. You know their tactics, their weaknesses, their psychology, knowledge that could be the difference between victory and defeat. Verak's secondary heart swelled with unexpected pride. Perhaps the end had not come after all. Perhaps with these strange and determined humans, there might yet be a future for the civilizations of the Confederation. When do we begin? He asked. Simply, Admiral Orlov's expression hardened into resolute determination. We already have. Deep within the Zarnathian-controlled territory, the hive node nexus pulsed with agitated energy. The central chamber, a massive organic cathedral where technology and biology had become indistinguishable, housed the 5 primary architects of the Zarnathian Imperium. Their enormous, bloated forms connected directly to the living walls through thousands of neural tendrils, their consciousness extending throughout conquered space. Primary Architect Zin Vex's compound eyes flickered with disturbed patterns as the neural feed from the destroyed battle group cascaded through his awareness. These new beings, these humans, represented an anomaly in the perfect pattern of consumption and expansion that had guided the Imperium for millennia. The data is incomplete, chittered Architect Mix Tarn, her mandibles clicking in agitation. These humans possess technology beyond our current understanding. They phase between dimensional states, rendering our targeting systems ineffective. More concerning is their psionic capability, added Architect Korvex. They broadcast interference patterns that disrupt our hive-link communication. Such ability suggests a species with latent collective potential, a direct threat to our evolutionary supremacy. Zin Vex absorbed the concerns of his fellow architects, then extruded a neural tendril into the central interface pool, a churning mass of biocomputational fluid that served as the Imperium's most sophisticated analytics engine. Initiate complete. Adaptive response, he commanded. Requisition genetic material from absorption chambers 17 through 42. Prepare for accelerated evolution cycle. Throughout the massive hive structure, thousands of captive beings from conquered worlds screamed as extraction processes intensified. The Zarnathians harvested their genetic material with ruthless efficiency, analyzing useful traits that could be incorporated into the next generation of warrior drones. The dimensional phasing technology is most concerning, observed Zin Vex. Institute immediate countermeasures. Adapt sensory organs to detect quantum fluctuations preceding phase shifts. In response to his command, the hive node began generating new warrior forms, larger, more heavily armored variations of the standard Zarnathian drone, but with specialized sensor arrays that pulsed with dark energy. These new quantum hunters would be capable of tracking the human vessels through their dimensional shifts. Deploy the severed mind to infiltrate human communication networks, ordered Mix Tarn. We must understand their command structure and strategic objectives. The severed mind, a portion of Zarnathian consciousness deliberately isolated from the hive to enable independent thought, activated in a specialized chamber. Unlike the unified perfection of the hive mind, the severed mind could think like the individualistic species it hunted, making it the Imperium's most effective intelligence asset. As preparations for a massive counteroffensive continued, alarms suddenly blared throughout the hive node. Architect Korvex's form convulsed in distress. Intrusion detected! Multiple spatial ruptures forming directly within the nexus. Before the architects could react, reality tore open in a dozen locations throughout the chamber. From these dimensional wounds emerged human soldiers in advanced battle armor, their helmets featuring distinctive psionic amplifiers. They moved with practiced precision, deploying into defensive formations as additional troops continued to emerge from the fold portals. Leading the assault team, Major Darius Reed activated his neural communication link. Strike Team Alpha in position. Primary architects confirmed. Commencing Operation Guillotine. The human soldiers immediately deployed psionic disruptors, devices that broadcast carefully calibrated interference patterns that attacked the neural connections between the architects and the hive mind. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. Throughout the chamber, smaller Zarnathian drones collapsed, their connection to the controlling consciousness severed. The primary architects, however, proved more resilient. Zinvex's massive form convulsed as protective membranes sealed around his neural cortex, insulating him from the psionic attack. With a psychic scream that shattered the minds of nearby human soldiers, he activated the Nexus's defense systems. From the organic walls erupted hundreds of defense drones, smaller, more agile versions of the warrior class, specifically evolved for close-quarters combat. They swarmed toward the human strike team, mandibles snapping and bioplasma weapons discharging. "Defense protocols engaged," shouted Reed as his team shifted to combat stance. "Quantum barriers up! Execute sundering protocol!" The human soldiers activated personal dimensional shields that caused the bioplasma shots to phase harmlessly through them. Then they countered with weapons unlike anything the Zarnathians had encountered. Molecular disruptor rifles that didn't simply damage their targets but unraveled their atomic structure. In the midst of the chaos, a specialized human team led by Commander Ndiaye fought their way toward the primary architects. Her psionic amplifiers glowed with increasing intensity as she focused her consciousness into a concentrated attack. "Their neural structure is adapting," she warned through gritted teeth. "They're evolving defenses in real time." Indeed, with each passing moment, the Zarnathian response grew more coordinated. New warrior forms emerged from Genesis chambers, these clearly incorporating traits hastily extracted from recently conquered species, including reinforced cranial structures that resisted psionic intrusion. Major Reed's voice came through the tactical channel. "Admiral Orlov reports similar resistance at Hive Nodes 2 and 3. 4 and 5 are still engaged. We need to accelerate the timeline." Commander NDI nodded grimly. "Deploying the Sundering Catalyst. All teams, prepare for phase shift on my mark." From specialized containers, her team extracted what appeared to be crystalline devices pulsing with quantum energy. These were positioned at strategic points throughout the chamber, creating a geometric pattern around the primary architects. As the battle intensified, Architect Zinvex recognized the threat. "Prevent their deployment," he commanded, directing all available forces toward NDI's team. But the humans fought with a ferocity that shocked even the ancient Zarnathian. Where his forces adapted, the humans countered with new tactics. Where his warriors evolved new defenses, the humans deployed weapons specifically designed to bypass them. "It's as if they've been preparing for this exact conflict for years," Zinvex realized with growing alarm. For the first time in his centuries-long existence, he experienced an alien emotion, fear. Commander Ndiaye completed the deployment of the final catalyst device. Blood trickled from her nose as she channeled her psionic energy to unprecedented levels, creating a containment field around the primary architects. Catalysts active. Phase shift in 3, 2, 1. Mark. The human strike teams activated their dimensional shift devices simultaneously. their forms blurring and then disappearing from normal space, leaving behind only the catalyst devices and the trapped architects. As the dimensional rift closed behind the retreating humans, the catalysts activated, creating a cascading quantum reaction that spread throughout the neural network of the hive node. The primary architects screamed in unified agony as their consciousness was systematically unraveled, their connection to the broader hive collapsing in waves of psychic feedback. Throughout Zarnathian-controlled space, their forces suddenly lost cohesion as the controlling influence of Hive Node 1 disintegrated, and deep in the void between stars, Admiral Orlov received the confirmation signal from all 5 strike teams. Operation Guillotine complete. Primary targets neutralized. The E. Admiral allowed herself a small smile. Begin Phase 2. 3 months after Operation Guillotine, the observation deck of the UES Arbitrator offered a panoramic view of a transformed galactic landscape. Where once the Zarnathian Imperium had spread its corrupting influence across thousands of worlds, now liberation fleets moved methodically through former Confederation space, dismantling the remains of the hive structures and freeing enslaved populations. Admiral Orlov stood beside Commander Verak, watching as a particularly massive hive structure on the planet below them was systematically deconstructed by specialized human and Confederation teams working in perfect coordination. The neural degradation continues to spread, Verak observed, reviewing data on his holopad. Without the guiding influence of the primary architects, the remaining Zarnathian forces have devolved into isolated pockets with increasingly primitive behavior patterns. Orlov nodded. As expected, the hive consciousness was their strength, but also their ultimate vulnerability. Cut off the head, and the body withers, Verak completed. Though I admit, I still have ethical reservations about the complete collapse of an entire species, regardless of their actions. The Admiral's expression remained neutral. The Zarnathians aren't extinct, Commander. They've merely been reduced to their base components, individual organisms without the collective consciousness that drove them to consume other species. In time, they may evolve again, perhaps along a different path. A path you'll be watching carefully, no doubt, Verak noted with a knowing glance. Humanity has learned the value of vigilance, Orlov acknowledged. Speaking of which, the Confederation Council is reconvening in an hour. Chancellor Okafor requested your presence. The reconstructed Confederation Council chamber now occupied a dedicated section of the massive human vessel. As Verak entered alongside Admiral Orlov, he was struck by how the chamber had transformed. Where once 17 species had governed in isolation, now an 18th seat had been added to the central table, the representative of humanity. Chancellor Okafor rose as the session began, her dignified presence commanding immediate attention. Representatives of the Galactic Confederation, today marks a historic moment. The threat that nearly destroyed our union of civilizations has been neutralized, and the process of rebuilding has begun. Holographic displays activated around the chamber, showing restoration efforts across dozens of formerly occupied worlds. Confederation citizens working alongside human engineers and scientists to rebuild cities, restore ecosystems, and heal the wounds inflicted by Zarnathian occupation. But reconstruction isn't why I've called this special session, Okafor continued. Today, we must address the future of our civilizations. The old Confederation was built on noble principles, but its structure proved inadequate when faced with an existential threat. Murmurs spread through the assembled representatives. Verak felt his secondary hearts quicken. Was humanity planning to assume control, after all? Had they simply replaced one dominant force with another? Earth's united government proposes not the restoration of the Confederation, Okafor stated clearly, but its evolution into something stronger. We propose the formation of the Galactic Alliance, a union of equals with integrated defense forces, shared technological development, and coordinated expansion policies. She gestured, and a new holographic model appeared, showing not the hierarchical structure of the old Confederation, but an interwoven network where each civilization maintained sovereignty while contributing to collective security and advancement. Under this model, no single species, including humanity, would hold dominance, she explained. Defense responsibilities would be shared according to each member's capabilities. Technology would be developed collaboratively rather than in isolation. Commander Verak studied the proposed structure carefully. And what of non-interference? Principles? The Confederation had strict protocols about contact with developing civilizations. Admiral Orlov stepped forward. Those principles remain, Commander, but with modifications. Earth was nearly left defenseless because the Confederation chose observation over contact. We propose a more nuanced approach, carefully managed cultural exchange with developing worlds to prepare them for the realities of galactic society. For hours, the representatives debated the details of the proposed alliance. Questions of governance, military command structures, technological sharing protocols, and cultural integration were meticulously examined and refined. As the session concluded, Chancellor Okafor called for a preliminary vote, not on final ratification, but on whether to proceed with the alliance framework. One by one, the representatives of each civilization signaled their approval. Verak was the last to cast his vote. He paused, 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he considered the monumental shift taking place. The Confederation stood for 5,000 years, he said quietly. It represented the pinnacle of cooperative achievement among disparate species. Its fall seemed to signal the end of that dream. He looked around the chamber, his gaze finally settling on the humans. And yet, here we stand, not merely restoring what was lost, but building something stronger. The Confederation vote is approved. A respectful silence fell over the chamber, soon replaced by the subtle sounds of celebration appropriate to 17 different cultures. Admiral Orlov approached Verak as the council members dispersed. "You hesitated, Commander," she observed. Verak's mandibles clicked in what humans had learned was a gesture of thoughtful acknowledgement. "I was reflecting on the irony, Admiral. The Zarnathians believed they were the evolutionary pinnacle of our galaxy, the inevitable victors who would absorb all other life into their collective. They saw diversity as inefficiency. And instead, diversity proved to be the galaxy's salvation," Orlov finished. Humanity's approach to warfare was so alien to their understanding that they couldn't adapt quickly enough. "Not just your warfare," Verak corrected. "Your willingness to preserve what makes each civilization unique while creating something greater together. The very opposite of the Zarnathian way." 6 months later, Admiral Orlov stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned Alliance flagship Concordance, a vessel that incorporated technologies from all 18 member civilizations. Beside her, newly promoted High Commander, Verak surveyed the massive fleet assembling for the ceremonial inauguration of the Galactic Alliance. Below them, the liberated Confederation capital world of Harmonia gleamed with renewed vitality. The scars of Zarnathian occupation were still visible, but so too were the signs of rebirth, newly constructed spires rising alongside restored historical structures, parks and plazas teeming with diverse life forms. The recovery teams found something interesting in the ruins of the primary architect's neural archives, Verak mentioned, studying a data report. "It seems the Zarnathians encountered humanity once before, approximately 300 years ago. A scout ship observed your early industrial civilization and deemed you non-threatening." Orlov raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" "They classified Earth as a low-potential harvest world. Their report specifically noted your species' pronounced individualism and lack of natural defensive capabilities as evolutionary disadvantages." Verak's secondary breathing vents expanded in what Orlov had come to recognize as amusement. They concluded that humans would never achieve significant technological advancement because you spent too much energy on internal competition rather than collective progress. A fundamental misunderstanding of human nature, Orlov said with a small smile. Competition drives our innovation, but cooperation defines our greatest achievements. High Commander Varak gestured toward the viewport where thousands of vessels from 18 different civilizations had formed a massive, interwoven pattern against the backdrop of space, a living symbol of the new alliance. Perhaps that is the lesson the galaxy needed to learn, he said. The Zarnathians sought perfection through uniformity. The old Confederation valued diversity, but lacked unified purpose when threatened. Humanity showed us a third path, unity without uniformity, strength through difference rather than despite it. Admiral Orlov's communication device chimed softly. "It's time," she said. "The ceremonial fleet jump is about to commence." Together, they watched as the assembled fleet activated their engines simultaneously. Thousands of vessels of all shapes, sizes, and designs united in purpose if not in form. In perfect synchronization, they entered fold space, their departure creating a spectacular light show visible across half the planet. They were bound for the edges of known space, not as conquerors or consumers, but as explorers. The Galactic. Alliance's first official act was not a show of military might, but a message of peaceful contact to worlds beyond their borders. "They called you primitive," Varak said quietly. "They saw your diversity as weakness, your adaptability as chaos, your individuality as inefficiency, and they lost," Orlov finished simply. As the last ships disappeared into fold space, leaving only the Concordance in orbit, Varak turned to the human admiral. "There's an old saying among my people. Victory reveals the nature of the victor. The Zarnathians would have consumed. The old Confederation would have isolated. Humanity came to make it final, but what you made final wasn't destruction." Admiral Orlov looked out at the stars stretching endlessly before them. "No," she agreed. "What we made final was the beginning." In the vast darkness between the stars, the Galactic Alliance fleet emerged from fold space, 18 civilizations, united not by conquest, but by choice. And in that moment, the galaxy witnessed something the Zarnathians never could have understood. That true strength comes not from consuming difference, but from embracing it. The war was over. The future had begun. And humanity had shown the galaxy that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't evolution or technology or even the hive mind's cold efficiency. It was cooperation, born of choice, unity forged in diversity, and the unrelenting determination to build rather than consume. It was, in the end, the most human thing of all: hope.